endocrine system here. So here's the endocrine system. We'll do the first, and then we do the integumentary system, and then sayonara unless we have more questions. But we'll try to make it short and sweet tonight. The endocrine system deals with one's hormones. Hormones are chemicals that flow through the bloodstream. They attach themselves to body cells via receptors on their surface and influence their target's function. Hormones are secreted by glands. Glands also make other substances such as sweat, for example, that exit the body via channels or ducts. What do we call that type of gland?
Exocrine.
Exocrine, and that was Ebony?
Yeah.
All right, good. We'll do again. Unless it's too annoying, but one person sees the answer, and then we'll go in a row, and everybody gets to speak a little bit. And I know everybody paying somewhat attention here. Let me go to that. So the difference that I want to have us learn here. Hello, why can't I see? Oh man, you guys see the PowerPoint or the question?
PowerPoint. The PowerPoint.
PowerPoint.
Oh, good. Then why do I not see the PowerPoint? That might help. All right, I got it now. So the endocrine system, endo means inside. Exo down here means outside. And crine means gland. And so endo inside refers to bloodstream. So that means the chemicals are released into the bloodstream. And from there, they secrete in the bloodstream and it travels to a cell, a target cell that has a reaction with it. For example, if you eat food, you eat blood sugar, you eat sugar, so the blood sugar goes up, and so the pancreas will secrete insulin, and the insulin will go through the bloodstream, and then the cells pick up the insulin, and the receptor, which is that little thing here, picks up that and then translate a message, and the message will be take some sugar into the cell, and then the cell will open some gates that let sugar molecules in, and the sugar will go into the cells away from the bloodstream, making our blood sugar level, blood glucose level nice and level. And so that's an endocrine system example. The exocrine is when the glands excrete things to the outside, like in sweat, like in actually the pancreas sends the digestive enzymes into the duodenum, for example. So that's the difference between exo and endo. And you have to understand that the intestinal system is considered exocrine. So from food, from the mouth to the butt, down to the butt, all that food tube, that's like the outside, the way we look at it. So when you look at digestive enzymes, those are actually exocrine glands. So the pancreas is both makes insulin and glucagon, which is an endocrine function, and also digestive enzymes for all the different food groups to make sure the food gets broken down properly so it can be taken into the body. Good, enough talk of that. I better be a little more quiet now. Otherwise, we're not going to get through this. Question 2. The nervous system is fast-acting system and short-lived. Nerve cells send an electrical impulse quickly along a wire. They release a chemical at their end point, which then influences a target cell. Hormones, on the other hand, trickle through the bloodstream until they find a matching receptor on a cell. They are great for ongoing processes that take time, such as body growth, etc. As nervous system is quick and short acting, the endocrine system is slow and long acting. Is this correct or incorrect?
Correct.
Correct.
Good, I got you, Chris. All right, that's true. And that can be visualized nicely on that slide over here with this chart. That's nice. And I think you guys all understand this chart.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, like, you know, the nervous system's here, fast, short acting, and then the chemicals, that's important that you understand. And nervous system and endocrine system have both chemical transmitters. The nervous system releases the chemical at the end of the nerve itself, the cable thing, and the endocrine system just trickles the hormones into the bloodstream and lets it be picked up wherever that is going to be picked up. Good. So that's good with that. If a question, just speak up. The key to understanding hormones is that the receptor they attach to is what changes the cell's activity. The hormone is simply a messenger. Hormones come in two different classes, either water-loving or water-fearing. Lipofilling, which is fat-loving or water-fearing, hormones can easily pass through the cell membrane, which, remember, is an oil film. And then they attach themselves to the receptor on the inside of the cell. Hydrophilic or water-loving hormones cannot pass through the cell membrane. Where do you think their receptors are located?
On the cell membrane.
Who was the first I've been hearing?
Jessica.
Jessica. What?
Yeah. The third one, on the cell membrane surface.
Surface of the cell. Yes, there you go. Hey, honest, is this system making you do the questions a little bit more since I'm caught? Because I was thinking, should I call on people? Would that be even funner?
I think.
Would you guys like that?
Yeah, because every time we do the quiz, we start to memorize it. Oh, like me, I just start to see more like of the answers and start like to think about it.
So it's good that we do this way in class.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. And is it okay that maybe you miss one and I have to go back to another? You have to come a couple of times because it's hard that only one person can speak really. Mm-hmm. Is that okay, or is that very frustrating for you guys?
No, that's okay.
Okay, good. Then I'm all right. So, where was that? What was that question? I forgot now. Let me go there. So we have so the lipophilic is fat loving and the hydrophilic is water loving, and so the slide that talks about that is right here, and what I need you to understand on that is functionally really that the receptor on the water loving is on the outside of the cell because the water cannot penetrate the cell. That's really what you need to understand. Water cannot go through the cell. Water-based hormones cannot go through the cell. They have to use a receptor on the outside. Fat-based hormones, the steroids are fat-based. They can go straight through because the cell membrane, remember, is a phospholipid bilayer, and that's basically an oil film if you're thinking about it. So oil stuff can go through, watery stuff cannot go through. If you understand that hydrophilic concept, you got a lot done in the body. That's a very, very rudimentary concept. Hormones are secreted by many body cells. For example, muscles that is not used releases myostatin, hormones that influence many body functions negatively, increasing the likelihood of diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. A muscle that, however, contracts, however, releases myokines, which are hormones that influence body functions positively, decreasing blood pressure or the likelihood for diabetes. Who knew that muscle tissue can also act as an endocrine gland? This chapter mainly discusses, though, however, glands that only or exclusively deal with hormone releases. Most of their secretions are controlled by the negative feedback system, which is designed to keep many chemicals in the blood, such as glucose or calcium, at a certain range. Chemoreceptors measure specific chemical levels that influence gland secretion accordingly. Where are many of those chemoreceptors located?
Clearly, the third one.
The who?
Clearly.
The hypothalamus? Is that the one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. I just want to have you guys, be okay speaking it out. Because we got to learn how to pronounce these suckers. So don't worry, everybody make the same mistakes on it. So the hypothalamus sits in that pituitary gland. Remember that? I mean, the hypothalamus, no, never mind. That was wrong. The hypothalamus is in the brain, and then the pituitary gland sits in that sella turcica in the skull that we talked about. So that gives you an idea of where that stuff is in the brain. So the sella turcica is right here where that pituitary gland is, and right above it where the brain will be is the hypothalamus. And we'll talk about that when we get to the brain. The hypothalamus does many, 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 many things. For once, it is the connection between our emotions and the body function. So if we're always stressed out and all that stuff, we're going to get these pathologies. They call them psychosomatic problems. And the hypothalamus For example, if somebody's always angry, is always just crazy, rushing and nervousy and everything, it could be that over time, the brain adapts the body function and we get a high blood pressure. And the hypothalamus is the link between the brain, the feely stuff, and then the body function. So that's really, really cool. So the hypothalamus is a really cool part of the brain that we're going to learn more about when we get to the brain. But the other thing the hypothalamus does, it controls the pituitary gland. And it has hormones that it releases. It has hormones that, where am I? It has hormones that it releases that turn on then the pituitary gland to release hormones themselves that then go to specific glands and turn on the production of hormones in that gland. Or it's the hypothalamus that says, no, we have enough of that. And then it wraps down the production. It has another hormone actually that it secretes to the pituitary and says, like, don't secrete anything more for that other gland. And then the pituitary gland doesn't release a certain hormone that then goes to another gland, like the thyroid gland, for example. And then the thyroid gland stops making that hormone. So ultimately, the hypothalamus is sort of the king of the glandular control of many, many different hormones. And the pituitary gland is an executive part of making the hormones and sending it to the bloodstream. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Do you get that? Importance of the hypothalamus?
Yes.
Good. Yes.
Otherwise, the pituitary gland is a small, sits in the skull cell, which is talked about as two parts together, at least about 8 hormones. The posterior part has a direct neural connection with the hypothalamus. So actually those hormones are made by the hypothalamus and then released. So one of those 2 hormones is, you just also have that term hypophysis. See that term? That's an old term for a pituitary gland. So that's good to just have it in a book somewhere. You don't need to remember that. But anyway, one of the 2 hormones released in the lobe is the antidiuretic hormone, or that's the anti-P hormone, which controls how much water excretes in the urine. What is the other hormone released by the neurohypophysis, the posterior pituitary gland?
Oxytocin.
Oxytocin. That's Kirsty?
You mean oxytocin?
All right. Oxytocin it is. So let's see. Oh, wait. Let me stay on that. See what the next question. Okay, good. That's then the next question. So what do we need to know about those 2? So they're direct release back in here, ADH, antidiuretic hormone, and oxytocin. And these are the functions, what they do, which is or what organs they work on. So that's kind of nice to just have it be an overview chart. You don't need to, you know what you need to memorize is what's on the test review sheet. So make sure you have that with you. And if you don't know that 5-pager, that is in the beginning that I talked about before. If you don't have that, make sure you speak up, because that's the stuff that I need you to memorize or need you to know for the test compared to everything. You don't need to know everything. It's too much stuff. But anyway, the ADH is the cool one, because that one you can feel how it works in the body. Because when you drink coffee or caffeinated drinks or alcohol, you go pee all the time. And that's the anti-P hormone. Diuresis is peeing. The anti-P hormone is inhibited by alcohol and caffeine, and so it does not act on the kidney to keep the water in the bloodstream. And so it's kind of a blood diluter that way in some ways, at least short term. And so that's kind of an interesting place where we can see how hormones function. And also how slow they are. It takes a little while. And then the next question here is, the other part of the pituitary gland, the anterior part, is linked to the hypothalamus, which controls it by a small vascular network. That's what I, said about talked about when the hypothalamus releases hormones, or they call them liberants, that liberate hormones released by the pituitary gland. And then the pituitary gland releases hormones going to other glands that then secrete the hormone that works on our body cells. So it's multi-level, because the problem is hormones are ongoing processes a lot of times. So we want to be very, very careful how much chemical do we put into that system. And it needs to be finely tuned and monitored. And the main monitoring place is then again the hypothalamus. And so we feed back of what's going on in the body with that. Anyway, and then the liberants, those are liberants. And then we have the statins, and those are chemical inhibiting the release of hormones by the pituitary gland. And of course, I just wanted to talk about that. And then the question is, what hormones are released by the pituitary gland? Choose all that apply. The adeno, the front part of the pituitary gland.
Melissa, the first one's prolactin, and then the second one is adrenocorticotropic hormone, and then thyroid stimulating.
Okay. And then these are different ones, right?
Yes.
Good, very good. So we're back to this chart, basically. Oh, wait, what the heck did I just do? Go back, I don't want to do that. Undo new slide. Oh, I don't need a new slide. So we're back to basically all of those hormones that I talk about. So we have the ACTH, we'll talk to the adrenocortical, we'll talk to adrenal gland, and then have stuff secreted by the adrenal gland. The thyroid is the thyroid gland. The growth hormone goes directly to liver and then muscle, so it works more fairly direct that way. And then prolactin, and then the sex hormones are right here, the control sex hormones. All right, and then let's see what this is. This we talked about. Good. Then let's go back to the quizzy. Keep moving right along. The pineal gland is a pine cone shaped gland situated in the middle of the brain. It secretes melatonin. What does melatonin regulate? Anybody?
Day and night rhythm.
Ebony. Wait, you're second. You can't. Oh,
Day
too
and
late.
night rhythm.
Good. Too late.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. Day-night rhythm. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So the melatonin, melatonin apparently is one of the things they thought, or maybe still think, I don't know if they changed the tune on that, that is a reason why kids are having better success with the corona. So I got myself some melatonin to make me fall asleep. Oh, well, let's go make sure we go through these. Do you guys have any questions about these descriptions down in here? The ADH, the oxytocin. The hormone stuff is fairly straightforward, right? Once you understand how the mechanism works.
Yeah.
Anybody help me out with that? Is that correct, or is it all confusing? Hello.
It's pretty straightforward.
All right, good. Thank you.
It's correct.
Okay, good. So that's what I think. It's like this is what it does, and then you just kind of need to have a chart of looking it up. What is interesting is that hypothalamus, pituitary, and then organ thing. So that's the adrenocortical. So where were we? We were in the pineal gland. Where is the pineal gland? Give me to the pineal gland. There it is, the third eye. So that's kind of interesting from the hieroglyphs, the pineal gland thing. And so, yeah, the melatonin apparently is very protective antioxidant. And so that's, one of those things that is also not bad if you have a hard time falling asleep to take it once in a while. You just have to be careful not to always take it, because what you do is you give the body a substance that itself it makes, and we don't want the body to think it doesn't need to make that substance anymore. So they say if you take melatonin, take it like for 30 days or so and then have a break. So don't take it all the time. Just in case you are a person doing that. But I've been taking it through the corona, that's for sure. One reason people sometimes have difficulty losing weight is because of an underfunctioning thyroid, a gland in the front of the neck. What does the hormone from that gland regulate?
Energy production.
Alice, energy production. That's right. So if you were feeling sluggish all the time, it could be because you're anemic, potentially, or not sleeping enough, or sleeping too much. That's also potential. The inertia is hard to get over sometimes, especially during the corona when these Netflix things are happening in my head. But the thyroid gland is the one that deals with energy. So if we're really wiry, it might be that we have a little too much of that, the hyperthyroidism. And then if we're too sluggish, it might be that we have hypothyroidism. So if it is hard to lose weight, for example, that's a good one to check because that is directly related. All right, what else we got with that? Hold on, let's see. Oh, we get to the next one. Good. Numero 9. We have heard before of how important blood calcium levels are. Many vital body functions depend on it. We have like muscle contractions, for example, which is kind of important, especially in the heart muscle. We have 2 hormones that regulate it. Can you name the 2 of them? Anybody?
Hyperthyroid and calcitonin.
Uh-oh. What? Parathyroid and calcitonin. Yep. There they are. So, blood calcium.
I have a question.
Yes, Shamim.
I picked thyroid and parathyroid. Wouldn't I get like half of it right?
Not in this quiz.
I'll go back and do it again. You know how like if you choose.
Yeah,
one or
no,
more,
I get it. But I don't think the quiz picks that level up. I think the system is not that detailed.
It does. It gives you partial sometimes.
Oh, does it do partials sometimes?
Yeah, it does partial.
Huh? In my quizzes?
Yeah.
Huh? No, I guess it didn't do it this time.
Okay.
I have no idea. There's no button for me to change that. That's interesting. I can just choose which question type.
I got 9 and 10 wrong. But yeah, I'll group share it.
If you got one or so wrong, don't worry about total detail. I wanted to let you know that because the grade on Canvas, I'm totally confused of how to deal with that right now. So do not read into the grade on Canvas. If you got these quizzes, most of those points, you're in good shape. Okay. We do quizzes and somehow upload me homework from the heart so far and the blood, and then when we get to the nervous system and the brain, we're gonna move back on that train and do more of that. That will be next in about a week or so. Okay, but yeah, don't worry about too much of the details because the grade doesn't go from Canvas into my system. I'm the one who puts it into Peralta. So I gotta walk the grade in my hand. I just take from the Canvas whatever I'm getting from you guys, and then I do the grade in the background based on what I see, not based on not based on what Canvas calculates.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I don't trust that thing that much. No. And you guys are doing a great job. If you're doing this transition and all that, I'm really proud of you guys. It's not easy to all of a sudden pivot like that and take classes online that we're in class. It's a big deal. All right. Is that good, Shamim?
The whole mute thing. Yeah.
All right. Oh, and what I wanted to say about this, though, still, I'm sure it's in the videos too, but you want to, so this is dealing with calcium levels in the blood. So both of those are, one is in the thyroid itself and one is behind the thyroid called the parathyroid. And the way I remember, because we got a couple of hormones that one brings a level up and the other brings a level down. And the way that I remember the calcitonin tones the blood calcium level down. So I take this, tones it down. And that's the reducing the blood calcium level. And then I know the other one is the other one, and I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Okay, got it.
So you got it. So that's often what I found in studying science is helpful for me. I know it's both, but I'm confused. And in the test, it's like, no, then I'm nervous. So I'm going to be confused. So if I make a mnemonic or something for one way of looking at it, then I can always go back to that way of looking at it. So if I know calcitonin tones the calcium down, parathyroid will do the opposite of that. All right? Good. All right. I'm sure you guys are way smarter than me in the way you're looking at all that stuff. I'm a little slow studier, so I have to think a lot about these things. The inner adrenal medulla is a hormone closely related to the fight or flight response. What is that hormone?
Epinephrine.
Who?
Epinephrine. Kirsty?
Yeah, hold, you can't. Oh, you got one left. Okay. Yes, it is epinephrine. Good. And then from now forward, I need to hear from people who have not answered me question yet.
Okay, cool.
Because I got a few of those. I will make sure I get everybody out of the woodworks today. As the least I can do. So, what are we talking about? Epinephrine. Oh, here. Who? Wait. All right, now it's quiet. Good. So when we look at the adrenal glands, what's interesting, we have the adrenal cortex on the outside, and that's right here. That's the cortex here. You can see that cortex here. And then on the inside, we have the medulla. And so we have different hormones that come from the adrenal gland, which adrenal sits on top of the renal, on top of the kidneys. That's why it's called adrenal. And so the outside, the cortex has 3 different hormones coming from it, and the 3 different layers. If you take a microscopic thing and you look at it, that's the different layers. I can't really, you know, a little lighter, a little darker, and then a little more lighter. And that's all the different hormones that come from these different layers. And then some of those hormones we'll talk about. But the inside, the medulla, is where we get the stress hormone from, the epinephrine, the reaction hormone. That, you know, the adrenaline, basically, what we're talking about. That's a short-term stress response. And that's right here. This is the medulla, and that's where the adrenaline comes out of it. Let me see what the next question is to make sure I'm not going too far. No, I'm not there yet. Pancreas is the next. Okay. So the other hormones have middle on the cortex. One of the hormones we talk about is the cortisol, and that's from the middle layer. And you don't need to memorize anything other than what's on the test review of these words. Okay, make sure you don't go crazy on that. But what's interesting about it is that the epinephrine is a short-term stress response. So you get on the freeway, some jerk cuts you off, and you freak out. You make sure you don't have an accident. That's cool. And then a minute later, you get jittery and you think, I didn't have any coffee. What's up with that? And that's the epinephrine. That's the adrenaline. And that's a short-term stress response. That's very, very useful that we have that. Blood pressure goes up, heartbeat goes up, metabolic rate goes up, everything that we need to perpetually have not a disaster happening with something like that. So be able to have a full sympathetic response, so to speak. And then long-term, though, that's short-term. And then after a little while, that thing is out of the system. And but if the stress is high long-term, then we get into the cortisol situation. And so we're gonna get cortisol released into the system and deal with the situation long-term. The problem is with that is we break down the body over time. It decreases inflammation, and it also increases blood pressure and volume over time. And so we get into these long-term pathologies through that system. And what's interesting is, though cortisol is the natural form for cortisone, and cortisone is what we often give us to minimize a herniated disc problem in the back or a joint problem in the knee or something like that. And so it's synthetic cortisol that we give the body, and it does in the body decreases the inflammatory response and the pain response, because that's what it does, and that's very positive. But it has also these other side effects over time if you do too much of that, like decrease the immune system and increase the blood sugar levels, so we have energy available for having this stressful situation all the time. And so that's the spiel I want to give you there with the cortisone and the cortisol and the long-term stress response. So this is why, taking a break and not being crazy and ripping our hair out too often is why that's good to do that, to not have too much of this long-term stress response. Because we're living in a hyper-stress time, not just time, but also time right now, but generally in a higher stress time, and then in a densely populated area, which usually brings the stress up a little bit more as well. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that in there. So let's move right along. 12, the pancreas is interesting. It releases lots of digestive enzyme into the first part of the small intestine. Besides that, it also controls the blood glucose level. It secretes a hormone called insulin that attaches to most body cells and let the glucose enter from the bloodstream. Glucose is then broken down inside the cells to make energy, which is our ATP. Can you name the hormone that can raise the blood glucose level?
Glucagon.
All right, who was that?
Shirley.
The first one.
Carmen, glucagon.
Carmen, seriously, you can't talk right now. Carmen, you haven't.
Okay.
If you have answered the question before, you have to be quiet right now. Everybody. Okay, glucagon, perfect, Carmen. Thank you very much. And that's when we look at the calcium. Where was that? We just looked at the calcium. One hormone raises it, the other hormone lowers it, the calcium in the blood. The same is true for that insulin thing. So in the pancreas, we have insulin that raises the blood glucose. No, insulin that lowers the blood glucose level, and glucagon that raises the blood glucose level. Because, you know, sometimes you go without food and you feel a little dizzy, or, you know, that's that. When we get hangry, you know, glucagon is at work. You should eat something. You have heard that term hangry, right? Nobody?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're hungry, you get angry.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, that's hangry, they call that. So we always got to make sure, you know, when we think our partners and stuff a little pissy or so, we got to make sure, did we eat anything? At least I got to make sure my metabolism is pretty fast still. All right, so that was that. Oh, look at that. We're almost at the end. What glands secrete the sex hormones?
Gonads.
Is the first
Iona.
Who hasn't
Iona.
spoken yet? Huh?
Iona.
Iona.
Gonads. That's how you
The
say it?
gonads. Yep.
Okay.
That's good. All right, got you down. The gonads are down here. Oh, look, that's a pretty picture of the pancreas. Which, if you go to another level of school, is you have to know a few more things. And so I put there's a few more terms here, but you have to know those for our class. And then we got the gonads, the sex hormones, to make sure we don't die out as a species, which is very important. I mean, or is it only about the fun? All right, let's go to the next chapter and keep this moving. Oh, wait, did I already bring it up? Yo, there it is. Good. Quiz here. Hang in with me a second. Module. Ping, ping, 7. Look at that. We're almost done. Thank God the internet works today for me. The skin is the integumentary system's main organ covering the external surface of the body. On top, many layers of epithelial cells. Stratified, squamous, keratinized epithelium. You make sure. No, you don't have to understand that. But did you understand how that is made? That term comes up, like how that's made? Stratified. What does stratified mean? Anybody? What does epithelial mean? Nobody? Go back to chapter 4 at some point, and just when you review it, then you'll get it. But skin, the top layer of skin, is the type of is epithelial tissue, that type of connective tissue. All right, so that we got there. The top layer are dead cells that simply fluff off when we bump into something, for example, and underneath that. And then underneath that is connective tissue. Oh, I should have said underneath epithelial tissue is connective tissue anchoring the top layer, the epithelial tissue, to the bottom part of the body. That's not that well worded. But anyway, below that is a layer of adipose tissue, a fat layer. Can you name the 3 layers? Choose all that apply.
Epidermis, the one subcutaneous fat layer.
Subcutaneous fat layer. Good.
Dermis.
And dermis. Cool. And who is that?
Jessica.
Oh wait, you answered the second question, right?
Third one, I think.
Okay. So you gotta make sure. You gotta.
No one was talking. That's why I was like, okay.
Oh no, that's totally cool.
Come on,
No, we're not.
Jessica,
We're loose. We're holding this loose. I just want to make sure I get everybody out of the woodworks a little bit. That's all. So let me just go to the picture real quick. The slide 2 here real quick. So that's basically. Oh, here. That's basically this. The top layer is the epidermis, then we have the dermis, and then we have the subcutaneous fat layer, and that's what you find in those things. And so this is not that much. Those questions were pretty all right, generally speaking? I hope. Oh, look, now we got a matchy one. That's good. Remember, epithelial tissue is basically rows of cells. It doesn't have the extracellular component that is part of the connective tissue. In bone, that was calcium, and in blood, that was plasma. Just a reminder. Again, that's chapter 4 stuff. In the skin, the epithelium is stratified, which means it consists of many layers. There is the answer to that question. The bottom layer anchors the epidermis to the underlying tissue. It is very regenerative and constantly produces new cells, which are then pushed upward towards the surface, slowly drying out and accumulating the protein keratin, which makes them hard and waterproof. That's the leather, right? Our skin is the leather that we have sometimes on our jackets. Match the 4 main epidermal layers. So stratum basale is which one? Anybody who hasn't spoken yet? Nobody, huh? Ta-da.
I think it is cells constantly dividing that in this layer, Jennifer.
Cells constantly, yes. Good. Next, stratum spinosum. You want to do another one, or you're good with that?
I'm good with that.
Good. Who next? Somebody who hasn't spoken yet. Stratum spinosum. Which one?
The first one?
The cells accumulate pre-keratin. Yes.
Yep.
Catherine. Right?
Yep.
And then next, if you want to do one more, go for it. The stratum granulosum.
The cells deteriorate.
There you go. That one. The looks like granules.
Yeah.
And then we got the last one.
I could go again. I don't mind.
Try if you, yeah, go again.
The layer consists of dead cells.
Dead cells, perfecto, good. That's it. So when we look at the slide for that, we basically have, wasn't that cute? Or SpongeBob. Anyway, that, I guess I wrote that when I was in the SpongeBob. Where do I have a better picture than that? No, that's not a bad picture. That's the basale. That's where we divide. That's the spinosum. That's where we make this keratin, and that's the granulosum. It looks a little more granular, like dotty. And those are the keratins, which makes it waterproof. And then the top layer is just fluffy dead cells. And then in the palm of the hands and the feet, we have this extra layer called stratum lucidum, which is lucid, see-through. That's why those are different, a little bit different, the feet, the sole of the feet, and the palm of the hand. All right, so then with that, let's go to the next question. Good job. Oh, more. Look, I found, you realize, right? I found out that I can do more quiz functions, no quiz question functions. So I put that one in. Took me a long time. But the main cell types in the epidermis are keratinocytes. Other ones concern themselves with transforming touch and pressure into nerve signals that are sent to the brain. Some are designed to protect us against UV light from the sun. Another cell type protects us against invaders that are actually, those are actually resident macrophages. What match the cell time to its action? Oh gosh, I really was into it. Mechanocyte cells, which one of those?
The Merkel cells, Ayana.
The Merkel, Angela Merkel, the German chancellor. I know, know that a little bit more about that stuff. The cell that protect against UV rays.
The melanocytes.
Melanocytes, good. And then the resident macrophages.
Is the Langerhans.
The Langerhans, good one. And that's a German word meaning long john, basically. Hans means John, and longer means long. So anyway, just if it helps with the mnemonic, I'm not so sure about that. But I'm sure it was just a person. So keratinocytes, Merkel cells, Melanocytes. Melanocytes are really cool. They make little umbrellas around the nucleus so the cells don't die when the sun rays are so strong. So that's pretty cool. And then the long john cells are here, right there. And then this is just a slide that shows us everything. Well, many different layers of cells and stuff like that. So you don't need to know all those terms. That's just to integrate the information. And you put pictures up that I think are helpful and pretty, and spend some time doing that. All right, so next question. The underlying dermis is connective tissue, which has a few important properties. For once, its extracellular matrix contains fibers which prevents the skin from tearing. Peg-like projections of the top dermal layer increase their surface area to help anchor the epidermis to the underlying tissue. What is the top dermal layer called? Anybody who hasn't spoken yet? Going once.
Is the last one?
Papillary layer, yes. And that's Jennifer. So I think we'll open it free for all. Everybody can speak up again the last two questions, because I think we've exhausted pretty much the amount of people I got here. Dermis. So when you look at when you see here, you got these wiggly things going up and down. Those wiggly things are all throughout wiggly things. They're not just like wiggly here. They're three-dimensional wiggly things. And so they really make the surface area where the epidermis and the dermis touch each other much, much larger than if it were just flat. And so that's called, that wiggly thing part is called the papillary layer. Good. That's good for that. Oh, here, 5. Okay, open for everybody. We learned from the immune system chapter that the first line of defense is the skin, because it creates a boundary that keeps the bad stuff from entering the body. Can you choose all the functions of the integumentary system that apply?
Clearly,
All of them. All of them.
Okay, we got everybody, all of them. Shamim, Searly. So yes. Easy question, but I like my pig. Protection, immune function, temperature regulation. You guys understand all that? Temperature stuff, the sweating and the radiating off the heat. That makes sense? And does that also make sense? The sweaty, salty stuff? That's where Gatorade comes in, right? If you sweat too much and you just drink water, you're going to not have enough electrolytes at some point. That's where Gatorade, well, not Gatorade, but something like emergency or an electrolyte solution. And then sensory function, of course, we can communicate with the skin heavily too. All right, and then let's see what's next. Almost finished here. Number 6. Have you ever wondered where sweat comes from or what it actually is? Well, it comes from, you guessed what, from sweat glands. Can you name the other skin gland type that secretes the oily stuff?
Cesar, the first one.
Yeah, no.
Oh, no.
Which one? The first one?
Third one. The third one.
Third sebaceous gland. Yes, all right. Hey there, I got Ebony and Cesar. Dang, good. You spoke up, man. Hello. Choo-doo. Perfect. All right, let's see. That's the glands. We don't need to worry about that too much. There they are. Each hair has a sebaceous gland attached to it. So that's fun about that. They come with the hairs. Oh, look at that. Hair's absolutely cool. When I shaved my head once, long time ago, I started hitting it all over the place. It was then that I realized hair's protection, because it helped me sense objects before it hit the head. Another great advantage hair provides can be observed in furry animals. When a cat, for example, fears an attack, its neck hairs stand up to make it look bigger and scarier. Hair exits the body at an angle. A muscle attaches to its shaft, and the skin above to straighten it out when it contracts. What's that muscle called?
Erector pili.
Erector pili. Thank you, Chris. Cool. And we got that muscle right here. So that's the goosebump muscle. So when you got goosebumps, you know the hairs are standing up, even if it doesn't look like that. And if you don't think you got hair, it's just very, very fine. hair. And then the last one was the nails. And I don't think I have a question on the nails here, but that was pretty straightforward, right? Good. Any questions to this whole thing?
No, I don't.
It's straightforward, right? Good. Then let's call it a day.